From Scripps Sports, this is Grizzly Insider, sponsored by Albertson Safeway.
Hello everyone and welcome in to the Griz Insider as we wrap up the 2025 season for the Montana Grizzlies as UM fell to Montana State this past weekend in the FCS semifinal round and Montana finishes the season 13-2. Alongside the voice of the Griz, Riley Corcoran, I'm Kyle Hansen. And first of all, Riley, before we kind of dive into the game, we had a lot of fun building up to the week, right? And really in the weeks leading up to it, knowing how monumental this was going to be for the Treasure State. And I got to say, it lived up to the billing. It was kind of fun to just kind of stand there, soak it all in, and be proud to be a Montanan for a moment.
So well said, Kyle. I think all week it was fun, and we had a lot of gratitude, and we're pinching ourselves that we were being able to call this game or be a part of it in some regard, and it did live up to the hype. Sure, the Griz came out on the losing end of it, but my gosh, the build-up was everything you could ask for. That scene in Bobcat Stadium, the flow of the game back and forth, which we're going to get into. I don't think anybody sat down the entire game as well, so it was just a great spectacle of the sport, right? And we were a part of it, and it will go down in history, no question about it. But a great day, great build-up, and really a fun cap to what was been an amazing year.
And when you think about it, there's only one scenario that could top this, and that's they meet in the national championship, which might be here sooner rather than later at the rate that these two programs are going. And Riley, it was quite the game, as you mentioned. There were ebbs and flows. Montana State starts out hot, and we've seen this where the home team in this rivalry over the last several years starts out hot, and the road team kind of fades away. The Grizzlies didn't do that, but let's start with that first part where the Bobcats roll out to a 20-3 lead, especially on that long touchdown run from Adam Jones, and they were rolling kind of right out of the gate.
They were, and I was a little bit, I think the alarms went off on the first couple plays for Montana, right, to when they went on a 3-and-out, and that's nothing that any Griz fan or anyone that had been watching this team had seen the last couple of weeks. The fact it was a quick 3-and-out, I think in about 30 seconds. Cats had a really good game plan for their rushing attack to spread the Griz side to side, and they were able to attack early on and to build a 20-3 lead when injuries were happening, people were dropping like flies. You kind of had that sense of, oh man, here we go again. It could be a runaway. And then as we're going to talk about, it did lead into the Griz coming back and kind of getting off the mat, because no team, I don't think in the last couple of years of this matchup, when the home team has thrown that first punch, there really hasn't been a comeback, but that provided for a great game.
You make a great point about the injuries as well, because there really hasn't been a game in the last several years, but especially this year, where multiple key players are starting to drop. And you look at Brooks Davis getting injured early, and then obviously poor Evan Schaefer seeing his season end on an injury after making a catch. A bummer to see in a game like this, because the Cats were dealing it too, obviously, with Caden Dowler going down. But the Grizzlies started chipping away, and it was interesting because they get that touchdown from Eli to make it 20-9. And then I remember on the sideline on that third down thinking they need to get a stop. And not only did they get a stop, they got a turnover and turned that into points. And then obviously going into halftime had all the momentum and eventually took that lead.
They did, and that turnover just seemed like it could be as monumental as the one in Missoula, to where, okay, these two teams are executing at such a high level, and there's not much that's separating the two, that it probably is going to be one turnover that could change the entire game. So Griz, for good reason, were feeling great about themselves going into halftime, to where it was catastrophic. And I think, not to put one injury maybe above another, but Evan Schaefer going down, he's just so key in the blocking game for Montana, as well as we've seen what he can do receiving, and the tight ends were open for Montana in that game. So they were all devastating, but I just think one by one for Montana to try and get that momentum on the road, it's hard to do, but wow, just an absolutely crazy game from the ebbs and flows, and then we all know who stole it at the very end.
100%. And obviously, great time for Jake Olson to make his first catch of the season, right? The Butte kid getting the touchdown to put the Grizzlies up. But then, like you mentioned, things keep mounting, right? Because you look at Micah Harper getting ejected for targeting, Keon Loud not playing in the second half. And, he was a big talking point going in because he didn't play in the first brawl. How would he fit in the mix? And then you look at, obviously, Michael Wortham got dinged up there, too, on that big play that set up Jake Olson's touchdown. So the guys kind of kept dropping. But then, obviously, once Montana State hit that home run play on the 3rd and 20 between Justin Lamson and Taco Dowler, that's when it felt like things were spiraling. Obviously, the Bobcats already had a lead and were kind of pulling that momentum back, but that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah, that was absolutely the backbreaker. And I think even with the Griz taking the lead, the Cats score, they're up by 4. I think that there was still a lot of optimism that the Griz could have gotten a stop, get the ball at midfield. They would have had great field position. And that's going to go down as the play, or whatever they trademark it over there, right? That it's going to be a play that lives in Bobcat history. And in fact, it probably is top 1 to 3 right now. I mean, instantly. But it was just a total game-changing play. And from that point, at that moment in the game, I didn't know if there was that much time for Montana to come back, especially with the injuries mounting up as well. But you just have to tip your cap. As hard as that is to do, you have to just tip your cap and say, when it came down to it, the Cats made the plays that mattered. And these two teams weren't separated by much. I know the final score might read a little bit different, but these were two elite teams in the country. And as we're going to talk about later on in the show, it was a great season. It just fell a little short to your rivals, which makes it hurt. But a phenomenal game, phenomenal season that came to a close in the semis.
And obviously, Bryce Grebe there at the very end getting the pick six to kind of seal the win. But I completely agree with you. A couple of great games these two teams gave us this season, and obviously, just really fun for the Treasure State. And for the second year in a row, the Bobcats are moving on to the FCS National Championship game. We're going to take a quick break here on the Griz Insider, but on the other side of the break, Riley will catch up with Montana head coach Bobby Hauck.
Welcome back to Grizzly Insider, sponsored by Albertson Safeway.
Welcome back to the Griz Insider. What a season for Grizzly football. 13 wins, comes to an end in the semifinals, joined by head coach Bobby Hauck. And coach, this is always so tough, the finality of the end of the season. It was a fun ride, 15 games in 16 weeks, but just kind of your overall thoughts when and we'll get into the game in a moment, but just of this season and this team and so many good memories that happened here in the last couple of months.
Well, 13 wins is great. If you don't make me talk about the two, we can go all day today. But, it's a special football team that can win that many games, and this was a great Grizzly team. I was impressed with their work ethic, how they improved through the season, and I'm not only impressed with the wins and again, getting 13 wins is awesome, but it was how these guys went about it, how they did it, who they were as people and players. Just really a joy to coach.
And the fourth team ever to start a season 11-0 and go all the way to the semifinals, 13th semifinal appearance in program history. Coach, we'll get to the game in Bozeman. It was kind of played into three parts, right? The beginning of it, a little bit of a rough start. The middle, where the Grizzlies dominated, took the lead. Of course, we know what happened at the end, but just take me through maybe the first half of that game where the Grizz did fall behind, but then you battled back and had to be feeling pretty decent of where you're at halftime.
Yeah, things were not going our way, certainly. And it was funny because we watched the Alabama-Oklahoma game the night before, and that's the way it went for Alabama. They got off to a rough start. We're down 17-0. We were down 17 points in that game, and then at halftime we were back in it, 16-20. We actually addressed that. Okay, here we go. Let's go get after them. We fought back, took the lead from being in a big hole. Really thought we were going to win the game at that point. And then, the injury thing didn't help us. We had some refereeing calls went against us, and then we didn't make plays when we had the opportunity, and the game got away from us. So really unfortunate not to win that game because we had a really good football team, and it would have been fun to be playing right now.
Ton of injuries, and that targeting call in the third quarter on Micah Harper really flipped the game around, Coach. When you did get in a groove and you scored 20 in a row, what things were going right? Obviously on both sides of the football, but offensively you were rolling. What'd you like most about when you did get on a run and take that third quarter lead?
Well, I think most of it was the guys locking arms and knowing we had a pretty good plan in different phases of it. They really went after it. They were fighting hard. It just really comes back to making plays. And we were in that stretch of game there, we were making a lot of plays on both sides of the ball.
Absolutely. What'd you tell your team afterwards? Because that has to be one of the hardest things to do. You've won a lot of games and you've coached a lot of years, but to the end of the season and to end, obviously, one game short of the national championship. But what'd you tell your team afterwards? Because we talked all year how much you love this group.
Yeah, I told them that, how much I love the group, the team, the guys on it. I told them how proud I was of who they were, how they played, and also reinforced the point about how much fun they were to coach. I mean, just all the things I just said to you is what I said to them after the game.
Well, record-setting offense, of course, and 13 wins all the way, Coach. Do you have maybe a favorite moment? I know it's fresh right now, but favorite moment or just an aspect of this team, of course, from having to replace every single starter on defense and to see the improvement that group was able to make throughout the course of the year, and then the offense, record-setting in a lot of different ways and really on par with that 1995 team, so pretty impressive across the board there.
The growth of the football team, it was really fun to watch. I thought the playoff football we played was exemplary. I thought we really played well. We got placed into kind of a gauntlet in the playoffs and certainly succumbed. But the football we played in the playoffs was fun to watch.
Well, Coach, final question for you. What's next for Grizzly football? Of course, we know that recruiting never stops, and it just seems this calendar's crazy. But what's next for the next couple months before we maybe talk to you again for Grizzly football?
Well, we got to go recruit,
yeah.
And that's the name of the game. So we'll be on it. We'll have a team meeting today. Tell everybody Merry Christmas, and then the coaches will get onto the recruiting platform and get going on that, and before you know it, we'll be in spring ball, Riley. So here we go.
Well, Coach, I know I speak on behalf of all of us here at the Griz Insider as well as Griz Nation. We thank you for your time all season long and being so candid, and certainly enjoyed the time and enjoyed the ride here this season.
Always fun, buddy. Thanks.
All right,
go Griz.
We'll continue on the Griz Insider on the other side of the break.
Welcome back to Grizzly Insider, sponsored by Albertsons Safeway.
Well, with the season now in the rearview mirror for the Montana Grizzlies in 2025, we'll go ahead and take a look at the season that was. And Riley, it was a lot of fun, right? You look at 13-2 for the Grizzlies, and just so much fun, especially watching some guys come of age and develop in front of our eyes, especially on the offense. But there were some guys too that were, they're only going to be here for a year. Some guys who were in the program multiple years that are now going to be moving on, and it was just a really fun to watch this team, but of course a joy to cover as well.
I think so, Kyle. From the beginning of the season to where there were a lot of questions that we didn't have the answers to replacing the entire defense. And I think that it's been embraced a little bit more of this 1 year. Maybe someone's coming in more for a short-term stay at Montana rather than the 4 to 5 year spots. And you're getting great stories throughout. And we had so many this season, right? From the ride at the very beginning, that North Dakota game. I still think that through the wild ride of Big Sky play and certainly that playoff run, don't want that one to be lost in the fold, because that's really when Keali'i Ayat grew up in front of our eyes, I think, in that second half, the comeback where they pulled the rabbit out of their hat. And then the possibilities started opening up for what this team could do. Conference opener against Idaho, down the line, those other games in conference play. The Montana Pandas, right? That came into play as well. But the Idaho State game on the road was fun. So there were so many games throughout the course of the year that I'll remember when thinking back. But I think the number one storyline is how fun this offense was, and record-setting across the board, and a lot of great individuals.
100%. And boy, it's funny you bring up Montana Pandas. That feels like it was 6 months ago.
Oh, it does.
What I mean?
It does.
That was because I remember that week was so much fun. It was so hectic. First time we'd really kind of seen a little bit of life pre-game, right? It wasn't really kind of the cliches and things. It was some barbs, which was fun to watch, and obviously a great game over in Sacramento. I'm with you on Idaho. North Dakota, of course, especially was, that was a moment that we've talked about this a lot, as you mentioned, is just they didn't have that last year, right? And they show that they can come back against a good team in North Dakota who, some things go differently for them. They may be a top 4 team in the FCS this year. And of course the playoff games as well. And just some of the players, it was a joy. I just think of, the Michael Worthams and the Hunter Pecks of the world who were only going to be here for a year. But, you look at Mike taking a chance coming here from Eastern Washington and getting 2 all-conference awards and being the best all-purpose player in America. Let's call it what it is. And Hunter Peck, we love seeing the NAI guys step up, and now we might have a pipeline at Carroll College as well. You look at those guys, and of course, the seniors too, I think, that came back, like the TJ Roushes, the Drew Decks, guys who stuck around and, could have left, and they came back and, had a great year.
Yeah, and I break down the senior class into 2 areas, right? There's 27 seniors. There's a lot of those 1 year, short-term, 2 year guys that came in, the solos of the world. Solomon Tulio-Pupu, another great story. But then also the appreciation for the TJ Roushes, the Drew Decks that stuck it out their entire career. Dylan Botner, of course, great achievement for him. The Doris Robinson Scholar Athlete Award, and to make it through all of those knee surgeries, right, to make it back. And I'm with you, Kyle. It was just so much fun and a joy to cover this team. And the ride they took us, we didn't even mention the Eastern Washington finish. That game was wild, too, in the second half. So I think that maybe when we have more time to come back and really assess this season, going 3-0 against the Dakota schools, I think will probably be a really big highlight. Only team you didn't play was NDSU in that regard. And a lot of fun to go around the board, and a lot of points, a lot of touchdown Montanas for the Grizzlies.
100%. A couple other names I want to point out too. Cannon Pamphilov, obviously coming here a couple years ago. Liam Brown sticking out through his entire career here as well. A lot of fun guys like that, that carved together really nice careers here with the Montana Grizzlies. And then you kind of, turn the page and look at some of the young guys, right, who might be back, or some of the guys who maybe they won't be back, but they were sure fun to have them here. But we think of Keali'i Ayat, Eli Gilman, Keon Loud for the brief period of time before he got hurt, just how good he was. Brooks Davis. I mean, the foundation for this team going forward is here, and a lot of excitement for Griz fans if these guys do come back, and obviously knowing that like offensively and defensively there's some familiar faces who could be wearing maroon and silver next year.
And I like that word, foundation, right? Because you need to have a foundation, I think, in football now to build success or sustain success. You can't have the roster turnover year by year, and you've got those foundational pieces. Peyton Wing also with another year of eligibility at that linebacker spot. You hope Caleb Otluski can return as well because he had such a torrid pace to the end of his season here this last year. So there's just so many great things and great stories, I think, on both sides of the football. But in this day and age in college football, there's more questions than we have answers. And that's why you really do have to appreciate the group that you have during the season, and I think that we got to see that every week on the Griz Insider with Coach Hauck, how much he did love this team. And that's not just Coach speak. There's years where you might not hear that every single week. We heard it from Coach. He really enjoyed this group, and the way they came together, it was enjoyable to watch, and they provided a great ride for all of us.
100%. Jake Olson, Evan Schaefer,
Yes.
Stevie Rocker Jr., you know, so many of these guys, Kenzo Lawler, I just wish I could name them all, and they were so much fun, and so many of them came here and joined us on the show, which was a lot of fun.
Yes.
To talk to them about their careers here at Montana, of course, cover them throughout their time with the Grizzlies. We'll go ahead and continue things on the Griz Insider after this.
Welcome back to Grizzly Insider, sponsored by Albertson Safeway.
Well, as we now turn the page, there's only one more FCS football game left, Riley, and it's going to be a fun one down in Nashville on January 5th. Montana State going to be the favorite, I'm guessing, going into that one against Illinois State, who's on a little bit of a Cinderella run right now. It's kind of crazy watching what they've done as road warriors in this FCS playoff bracket, obviously blowing up that side of the bracket, but going to be a big game. It's Missouri Valley versus Big Sky once again.
Amazing how that works out, right? Where maybe everyone outside of those two leagues wants to say, hey, they get way too much love, but at the end of the day, you got the top dog in the Big Sky Conference and a team that didn't even finish in the top four in the Missouri Valley that made it all the way to Frisco. You've got to tip your cap to Illinois State. What a run. 4 straight road games to do this, and Brock Spack, their head coach, is very well respected. They've got a good defense, so we'll see. It's all going to be predicated on stopping the run, but we've seen it firsthand. Montana State has had a great season, and they will be the hefty favorite. Should be a great matchup for the final FCS game of the year.
100%. Third time in 5 years the Bobcats are playing for an FCS National Championship, obviously trying to break through for the first time since 1984. And now let's pivot to what's next for us, and that's basketball. Hoop season is finally here, and non-conference is in the books. And we'll go ahead and start with the men, Riley, because obviously kind of a hot start to non-conference play, but kind of sputtered there towards the end.
Yeah, we've seen the best of this team, and we've maybe seen the worst of this team so far in the first 6 weeks of the season, which is kind of bizarre to say. They started off 4-1 for the first time in 7 years, beating UNLV, scoring 100 points 3 times. There's some similarities with Grizzly football that they're really fun to watch on the offensive side of things, but maybe have some things to work on the defensive side because they have lost now 6 of their last 8 games, a losing non-conference record for the first time in 7 years. So we'll see if they can move forward for Big Sky Conference play. We all know that's when the lights really get bright for this team, but we'll see. The men have shown us signs. For the Lady Griz, a really tough schedule to start, and they've weathered some storms, but hopefully can build some steam moving forward too.
100%. And they obviously did themselves no favors scheduling so many teams that are in the top 25 right now, and obviously some good home games as well. Ending non-conference, in a positive way with an overtime win over Tarleton State, going down to Texas to play some really tough teams down there. So Lady Griz is kind of trying to navigate a little bit, right? You have Avery Waddington and Matt Koenig, but from there I think it's a lot of these girls trying to find their roles and work under first-year head coach Nate Harris. Like, they have a little bit of a blueprint. They obviously have the magic of last year's March, but they just got to kind of find that. And as you mentioned, lights get brightest in March and in Big Sky Conference play, and that feels like when they might need to turn it on and when they have the ability to, now they're not playing such high-level competition and foes that they're familiar with, which will be starting here in the new year.
Absolutely. Lady Griz 3-8 non-conference, but you look at it, January 1st. It's a new season for both teams. Kind of fitting that it's going to be on New Year's Day for the men. They have 2 home games to start, but then a very road-heavy schedule in January. It's obviously the flip for the Lady Griz. So we'll see how both teams navigate. It really will. I think both teams will embrace the freshness of a 0-0 start in Big Sky play.
More than anything, this game against the Bobcats for the Grizzlies reminded me that I can't wait to be indoors for sports in the foreseeable future with basketball. It's going to be a lot of fun as we navigate towards hoop season with football season now in the books. We'll wrap up the Griz Insider after this. Well, as we wrap things up here on the Griz Insider, we're going to take a little bit of a break before basketball season really gets going in 2026. And Riley, it should be a lot of fun as we get going for kind of shifting our coverage a little bit as we get ready for hoops.
Yeah, and I think a very fitting break for everyone to at least refresh their engines a little bit for basketball season. It'll be nice to be indoors calling those games, but absolutely, we'll have all your coverage on the Grizzly Radio Network. The games, more of a consistent schedule. Thursdays, Saturdays, conference play will get going. We'll have our coaches shows beginning as well with Travis DeCuire and Nate Harrison. Just get into the teams a little bit more and to find out the stories and to see how these teams can both navigate. But Kyle, it'll be a nice break for all of us, and Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everybody before we certainly pick things back up and get rolling with basketball.
Excited to get a little bit of a break, and of course excited to get basketball season going because these two teams made fun runs back in March, and we'll see if they can do it again in 2026. Appreciate doing the show with you. We're going to go ahead and take a couple of weeks off before we get going in basketball season on the Griz Insider. So until then, we'll see you then and enjoy the holidays.